Today on Carolina Week, an ongoing investigation follows an assault and robbery in Morrison Residential Hall late last night. What we know and what we're waiting on.
And students chained themselves to the steps of South Building in the name of accessibility after a student was stuck in her on-campus residence for 32 hours.
Next on Carolina Week.
From the UNC Hussman School of Journalism and Media, connecting Carolina's campus and community, this is Carolina Week.
Welcome to Carolina Week. I'm Ashna Shah.
And I'm Kassia Asari. UNC police continue searching for a suspect after a crime alert late last night. According to police, a woman entered a student's room in Morrison Residence Hall around 8 p.m. and proceeded to assault and verbally threaten the student. The suspect is described as a Black woman with short hair, 3 nose piercings, and was reported as being 5'2". If you have any information, contact UNC police.
Accessibility on campus has been a top issue for students at school this year. On Friday, protesters took matters into their own hands to raise awareness. Pete Villasamil tells us the story.
UNC administrators faced an interruption in their morning routine late last week. The reason? 2 students chained by their arms blocking the entrance of South Hall to protest accessibility issues on campus.
We wanted to demonstrate to them that this is no longer negotiable.
Campus-wide co-presidents Megan Murphy and Laura Saavedra Forrero were glued to that spot for 32 hours.
This action, for me, is a way of giving people, able-bodied people, a glimpse of the discomfort that disabled people are experiencing on campus.
The protest comes 1 year after Saavedra Forrero was stuck in her dorm for 30 hours after an elevator malfunction prevented her from leaving the building.
I just remember this feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, and probably the most clear example I've ever had that I wasn't thought of at all.
The organizers published a list of demands, including yearly elevator and escalator inspections and establishing tailored evacuation plans in inaccessible areas. Protesters are also demanding a greater commitment to being ADA compliant in classrooms and dorms. Among the sea of protesters outside of South Building was Chancellor Kevin Guskiewicz, who discussed some of the accessibility issues on campus with Murphy and Saavedra Forrero. Student body president Teddy Van was also present at the protest, standing in support.
This action is out of desperation. If we listen to them in this desperation and all of the work that they're doing through all of the stress and turmoil to communicate to us what they need, we'll be able to see things be better.
Even as accessibility issues persist on campus, Saavedra Forrero is hopeful that one day there will be a Carolina that's accessible for all.
I know that I probably won't see a lot of the changes in my time here, but I refuse to see another Carolina Tar Heel have to go through what I went through. And so I'm willing to do what it takes now in hopes that no one else will have to, and that one day Carolina can feel home to disabled students.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Pete Villasamil, Carolina Week.
Last week, the UNC Board of Governors adopted a policy barring schools from asking prospective students and employee candidates about their political beliefs. The board approved the policy by a unanimous vote and comes shortly after NC State University removed a question about diversity from their undergraduate application. Before this, no schools in the UNC system had a question banned. The UNC undergraduate application asks students to describe an aspect of their identity and how it has shaped their life, but answering the question is now optional.
UNC will host the University Studying Slavery Conference for the first time. The conference takes place March 15th through the 18th. The free event is open to the public for all to participate in conversations surrounding the legacy of slavery. If you are interested in attending, registration closes Friday. Visit this story on our website for the registration link.
Opioid overdose deaths increased by 22% according to a new report from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Here to tell us more about the report and show how to respond to an opioid overdose is CW reporter Kelly Kendall.
Hi, Kasia. Yeah, the findings from this report are pretty concerning. In 2021, more than 4,000 people in North Carolina died from overdoses, and this is the highest number of overdose deaths recorded in a single year. For reference, here are the numbers from previous years. This is 2021. In 2020, nearly 3,300 opioid-related deaths, and in the year before that, a stark contrast, about 1,000 less. So we've definitely seen an increase, and according to the health department, the main culprit is fentanyl, which was likely involved in almost 80% of all opioid overdose deaths. Now, today, here with me in the studio is Tessa Busher and Kurti Patel. They have joined us here today in the studio to show us how to respond to a medical emergency involving opioids. They are from Campus EMS, and they are both emergency medical technicians. They're going to be showing us how to check if someone is having an overdose and how to administer the life-saving drug Narcan. Thank you guys both for being here today. Could you start by telling us what is Narcan?
Yeah, so an opioid, when it enters the body, it essentially binds to receptors in the brain, which causes the therapeutic effects. So that's going to be euphoria and decrease in pain, and that's why we use it in a medical setting. However, when you start to have too much of those opioids, it starts to overwhelm the body. It starts to decrease your breathing rate, eventually slowing it down and stopping it, which is life-threatening. Narcan essentially has a similar molecular structure to opioids, but a stronger affinity for those receptors. So once you administer Narcan, it'll actually kick off those opioids, start to reverse those negative effects.
Got it. So could you tell us how to administer Narcan?
Yes, of course. So anytime that you're going to be trying to help someone in a medical emergency, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your scene is safe. So whether that be someone's having an opioid overdose and is unconscious, that could also be something like somebody could be having unconscious because of carbon monoxide. It could have been an assault, anything like that. So you want to make sure that your safety is the number one priority. Once you've established that someone is in a medical, or you think they're in a medical emergency and the scene is safe, you're then going to approach the patient. For someone that's having an opioid overdose, they're going to be unconscious. But just because somebody's laying there on the ground, they might be unconscious, or they might be asleep, or it could be something else going on. So first you need to establish, are they really unconscious? The way that we do that is that we're going to go up to our patient and we're going to tap them and we're going to shout at them, hey, are you okay? If there's any sort of response, like they open their eyes, they move their hands, they say something at you, they're not necessarily unconscious, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a medical emergency going on. So you're still going to want to call 911. Once you've called 911, the rest of the steps that I'm going to be telling you, they're actually going to talk you through as well. But just for the knowledge sake right now, once you've established they are unconscious, the next thing you want to do is see if they're breathing. So there's three options that we have. They're either not breathing, in which case they're in cardiac arrest, and we're, instead of using Narcan, we're actually going to be doing CPR and using an AED. If they're breathing normally, there's not much that we can actually do. So we're just going to wait on scene until 911 responders come and kind of take over patient care. The third case is when we can actually use Narcan. It's that they are breathing, but they're breathing really, really slow. And I'm going to explain how to use it. If you're unsure whether or not they're breathing slowly or whether they're breathing normally, it's better to use Narcan because there's minimal to no side effects. So to actually use Narcan, there is a three-letter mnemonic, PPP, which is peel, place, and press. So the first thing you're going to do is peel open the Narcan. You're going to place it inside of one of their nose, and then you're going to press the plunger, and it's going to administer that Narcan. So make sure that you press it down hard and quickly, because essentially it's taking a liquid and making it into a mist that can be quickly absorbed by the body. Once it enters the body, hopefully, if it is an opioid overdose, it's going to start to reverse those negative effects.
Narcan can be picked up anonymously, free of charge, and without a prescription at the Student Stores Pharmacy and Campus Health Pharmacy. Tessa, Kurti, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
As talks of campus safety continue to dominate here at UNC, you may have noticed a new QR code in classrooms around campus. After experiencing a false alarm in 2015, one professor collaborated with faculty and Carolina safety partners to create a QR code found on faculty desks. To access these resources, scan the code, which will take you to the Carolina Ready Faculty Classroom Preparedness site, filled with training videos and guides to prepare the classroom, like locking doors and access to the Employee Action Plan.
Hey, Kasia, are you any good at Clue?
Honestly, I've never played it before, but I'm pretty good at sleuthing around on Instagram.
Well, now you can test out those detective skills without the physical board game, with live action Clue returning to Wilson Library later this month. Players work in teams to solve the classic whodunit mystery, searching the library for clues and interrogating suspects. This live action version started in 2012, but was put on hold during the COVID-19 pandemic. Allison Barnett organizes the games, which students both can enjoy and staff as well.
Been really excited to get into it again. We get just as excited about it as the students do. And then when we start to see the students get excited, we get 10 times more excited.
Live action Clue returns on March 29th at 5:30 p.m. in Wilson Library. Register now at clue.unc.edu.
So we know UNC has long been nicknamed the University of National Champions, but it's not just for athletics anymore. UNC junior Stephanie Pearson appeared on the show Jeopardy last week for a high school reunion tournament. She first appeared on the show when she was in high school. Pearson's win on Wednesday's show secured her spot in the semifinals. The winner of the contest will walk away with $100,000 and a spot on the show's annual Tournament of Champions. We'll be on the lookout for her next appearance.
Kasia, that's the competitive spirit combined with random trivia knowledge that characterizes a typical UNC student.
Yeah, I'm just notoriously bad at trivia, so I really can't relate. Next on Carolina Week, the medical marijuana bill passed one of two votes in the state Senate yesterday, and a new federal report gives us insight on where COVID really came from. Stay tuned.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. Yesterday, the North Carolina Senate voted 36-10 to legalize medical marijuana. The bill will be voted on again today before moving to the House, where it failed to pass last year. If it passes the House, it goes to Governor Cooper's desk, where it's expected to be signed into law.
An update now on the Biden administration's plan to cancel $400 billion in student loan debt. The plan faced several legal challenges following its announcement late last summer, and just yesterday faced the U.S. Supreme Court. Conservative critics, including Chief Justice Roberts, argue the plan exceeds the presidential power to modify student loan debt and does not extend to canceling billions. Meanwhile, liberal supporters such as Justice Sotomayor claim the state of student loan debt pre-COVID should not affect the decision of this case. The Supreme Court is expected to announce its ruling sometime over the summer.
Last week, we talked about how tuition revenue at UNC decreased because of an increase in scholarship awards. The other side of that is the tuition freeze the UNC board decides on every year. For the 7th year in a row, all 16 system schools will not see an increase in tuition and fees for the upcoming school year. In a statement, UNC system president Peter Hans said affordability is a bedrock value of the UNC system and an integral part of its strategic plan.
This week marks 3 years since the first case of COVID-19 has detected in North Carolina. And for the first time, the United States government is giving an official report of where the deadly virus might have originated. Over the weekend, the U.S. Department of Energy released an update to the previous report stating the virus likely came from a lab in the Wuhan province in China. The lab report is labeled as low confidence, citing lack of concrete evidence, due in part to the restricted access to limited data. This report from the DOE backs up an earlier report by the FBI that came to the same conclusion with moderate levels of confidence. The Chinese government continues to deny allegations of a leak from the Wuhan lab.
February 24th marked 1 year since Russia launched its full-scale invasion on Ukraine. Carolina Week's reporter Yako Olyanderturya traveled with the Ukrainian Association of North Carolina for a rally in Washington, D.C.
It has been a year since Russia's widely condemned invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainians living in North Carolina and their supporters, including UNC PhD candidate Misha Shvets, traveled to Washington, D.C. for a rally in solidarity with Ukraine at Lincoln Memorial.
It is inspiring to see all the support. We not only see Ukrainians here today, but Americans who stand with us.
Just as for many other Ukrainians, the war is personal for Shvets.
I had to step out of my Thanksgiving dinner here to find out if my mother is alive or not. When the rocket hits, you lose the connection, and you have no idea what happens there.
Marina Kapustina, president of the Ukrainian Association of North Carolina, says this year has been a long one. She's thankful for all the volunteer work and donations the group has received, but what she hopes for most, the end of the war.
Every day, our Ukrainian young men and women die. And that's, when you think about this, that's horrible. I'm afraid to call my friend whose son is nearby. I'm just afraid to call every day.
The future of the war is uncertain, and the next few months will prove critical to the outcome. I sat down with the director of the UNC Center for Slavic, Eurasian, and East European Studies, Graham Robertson. He believes there's no easy way out.
I think we're going to see a lot of really intense fighting over the next couple of months. In particular, I think April, May are going to be, and June are going to be pretty decisive. There is no appetite in Ukraine for a peace settlement that gives up territory at the moment. How that'll evolve, we'll see. There is very little appetite in Russia for the same kind of settlement. So this is, both sides are going to fight this out for a while.
But the cost so far has been enormous. Thousands have died in both Ukraine and Russia, with the latter perceived by the international community now as a pariah state, its reputation stained in a way that will take generations to change.
Shame on Russia! Shame on Russia!
In Washington, D.C., I'm Jaakko Landerturia, Carolina Week.
Thanks to Jaakko for following this group to DC to cover such an important story.
Chapel Hill school bus drivers will soon have the highest bus driver salaries in the state. A minimum of $20 an hour starts in July for all current school bus drivers in the Chapel Hill-Carrboro City School District. The increase addresses a staffing issue felt by the school district, but the entire state is struggling to find qualified bus drivers to fill the routes.
Another summertime change in the area, a new shopping center along U.S. Highway 15501 is set to open in Chapel Hill this summer. The Plaza 501 landing includes retail, medical, and office spaces. Half of the suites have already been leased. Its tenants including a Spanish language daycare, a chiropractic center, and a nail spa. The development was initially met with opposition as many felt it was more suitable to use other parcels of land that had already been rezoned for commercial purposes. Despite this, the project pulled through because of its strategic location. Construction is currently underway.
All this talk about summer is making me hope that the weather stays warm.
Oh, absolutely. Let's toss it over to CW meteorologist Corey Kowitz to check in on this recent heat. Corey?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. The heat is going to stay, and that's why I thought I'd be wearing a little pink today to represent kind of the springtime temperatures that we've been seeing here. You can see this map is looking really, really good for us. Very warm. We did have a slight alteration this morning in the forecast, making it a little bit cooler because of the increase in cloud cover. So it's going to be more in the low 70s. We look at the temperature map, and it's going to be a great day to be out and about, guys. If we took a look at here, class by class, into the high 60s by 12 p.m. and the mid 70s by 3, maybe a little bit lower again because the increased cloud cover we're expected to see as of this morning. And 6 o'clock here, you're going to be in the high 60s. However, we do have a rain system moving in tonight and into tomorrow morning, guys. Let's break it down here with this map. It's really two systems here. The first system that's going to affect us tomorrow night into tomorrow morning is going to be right here. The system cuts off right around here by the eastern Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia here. You can see the rain capsuling the Carolinas. Maybe a rumble thunder you can see with that red here. So it'll be not a ton of rain, but enough to dampen your morning. The rain chances don't stop there as we have a possible severe weather event on tap for your Friday. Again, let's break it down here. We have a circle here, which represents 15% chance of severe weather. We're right outside of that, so probably a rumble thunder possible Friday, as we could have a squall line of thunderstorms come about here, but right on the edge of that severe threat. And overall, we're going to see some pretty impressive rainfall totals here in the Carolinas. We're right on the edge of the 1-inch mark with those light blues here, represented by that red circle. So we're going to see a good amount of rain here over the next couple of days. Not a huge flooding event, but maybe you get some of that heavy rain in a short period of time. Could see some puddling and maybe some slight flash flooding here, especially on Friday. But you'll see that the rain won't continue as we have a mixed bag of weather this week. Today being a beautiful day, some cloud cover in the low to mid 70s. The rain gets introduced tomorrow night and tomorrow morning. Again, remaining nice temperature-wise. And for your Friday, we have that severe threat possible with this rain in the morning Friday, transitioning to a possible severe threat with a squall line coming through. Please check your forecast as it gets updated. Clearing out for your big game day on Saturday against Duke. Big game to determine if we can get into the tournament. If we win, we have a shot. A little bit cooler. And on Sunday, we can see it is going to be nice, a little bit of clouds, and it's going to be 64 degrees. So a lot of springtime temperature, guys. That means some pollen. I'll be breaking down some pollen next time on Carolina Week for you guys. Back to you.
Thanks, Corey. I mean, that's a mixed bag, right? It's going to be warm. It's going to be rainy.
It's the best of both worlds, but that's all right. Maybe hearing from some Sports Extra after the break will cheer me up a little bit. Stay tuned.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew a girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
From the Dean Dome to the big screens, you might have seen our very own Armando Bacot if you binged this new season of Outer Banks this weekend. Bacot makes a cameo in episode 8 of season 3, right around the 14-minute mark. During his few minutes of fame, he plays the role of a bodyguard named Mondo and has one line, money.
And you can't talk about Armando without bringing up Carolina basketball. Besides the Battle of the Blues this weekend, let's see what Sports Extra anchor Olivia Mundorf has for us today. Olivia?
Thanks, Ashna. In a must-win game for Hubert Davis and company, the Tar Heels headed to Tallahassee to take on the Florida State Seminoles Monday night. UNC pulled out all the stops to keep their tournament hopes alive and took an early lead with this three-pointer from Leaky Black. The biggest stat of the night goes to three-point shooting, something the Tar Heels have struggled with this season. UNC was 14 for 23 from beyond the arc, the third best percentage in school history. Despite a second-half comeback by the Noles, late-game scores from Caleb Love and Leaky Black helped keep the dream alive as the Tar Heels roll past the Seminoles, 77-66. After a come-from-behind win against Duke, the UNC women's basketball team is gearing up for ACC tournament. With the hard-fought victory, the Heels improved to 11-7 in ACC play. Carolina is the number 7 seed for the tournament, which will begin later today in Greensboro. UNC's first game will be tomorrow at noon in the second round against the winner of Game 2, Clemson or Pitt. The Diamond Heels brought the power Tuesday afternoon in Boshamer Stadium against the VCU Rams. Tomas Frick came ready to play, getting the Tar Heels on the board, hitting a round tripper in the second inning. Alberto Osuna followed right behind, sending a blast to left center field for back-to-back home runs. Frick proved his strength today, hitting his second home run, scoring Casey Cook and Mac Horvath in the third. And the Heels didn't slow down. Vance Honeycutt sent one flying, putting the Heels up 6-2. With 2 outs in the 6th, Horvath showed his offensive capabilities for the Heels, hitting a 3-run homer in the 6th. Matthew Matthias finished it out for the Heels with a 10-4 win over the Rams.
I think it's just hard work that I put in this fall, working back there with Coach Weirs and everything, just sticking my routine and also getting stronger in the gym. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life right now, so definitely those things.
The Heels offense got it going yesterday and will try to continue this surge tonight in Game 2 against VCU. UNC will look for center fielder Vance Honeycutt, catcher Tomas Frick, and third baseman Mac Horvath to swing big, as each had 2 homers in last night's affair. After slipping in the polls post back-to-back ECU losses, UNC will look to make it back-to-back to regain its footing at 4 p.m. UNC softball took to Anderson Stadium for a home game against Winthrop. After going down a run in the top of the first, with 3 ducks on the pond with 2 outs, Alex Brown struck this ball to score all 3 off a double in the first inning. After only 1 run in the third, the Heels drove in 3 runs in the bottom of the 5th. including this Carly Myrtle ball hit down the left field line, leading to an RBI double, putting the Heels up and out of reach ahead by 6. A fly ball to deep left field ended the game as the Heels walked away with this one 7-1.
I feel like we had really good energy on the field, and like we talked a lot more than we did this past weekend, and I think that helped us a lot. And I think the dugout was just a lot more like energetic. They were always in the game.
I think we just kicked it up a notch. Everybody was locked in. Everybody was having a lot of fun too. I think that was the difference. And everybody was super into it. Lots of energy. I feel like there's something different tonight that we needed to win this game.
After snapping their 6-game losing streak, UNC softball looks to keep up the momentum on the road against South Carolina tonight. The Heels will be the Gamecocks' first real test of the season, as South Carolina has compiled a 14-2 record, all against non-Power 5 opponents. The Heels are hoping the big bats of Kirsten Lisea and Abby Settlemeyer wake up, with both batting a combined 1-67 in the past 6 games. But with players like Alex Brown stepping up at the plate, Carolina's deep lineup looks to deal the Gamecocks its first back-to-back losses of the season. The UNC men's golf team looks to roll the dice in Las Vegas for the Southern Highlands Collegiate Tournament on Tuesday. The number 4 ranked team, who was in first place after round 2, struggled to keep their lead and placed 4th, shooting 16 under par for the tournament. Number 14, David Ford, and number 18, Austin Greaser, came out on top for the Heels in the individual leaderboard, tying 5th and shooting 8 under par. Club teams are not just about helping UNC athletes stay active, but they also build friendships, and Emma Hall has the story.
Emma Gandossi ran cross country and track at Weddington High School. Isabella Falcone ran track at Union Academy Charter School. The high schools are only 10 minutes apart, yet the 2 runners had never met. Coming in as freshmen at UNC Chapel Hill, the former high school athletes were searching for community in college and a way to stay in shape. They decided to continue their love of running by joining the UNC Running Club. This sport wasn't new for these 2 students, but their budding friendship was.
We were both at practice like almost every day. And then eventually, like after a few days, I think we just started like running together and got to talking, and then we would like go grab dinner in the dining hall and stuff like that.
I think we both had the same like goals of meeting new people, and you know, there was like some pictures we took like with a bunch of friends, and we didn't even realize like we were standing right next to each other, you know, looking back later on.
Past photos together wasn't the only surprise in their friendship. Last semester, when it was time to head home for Labor Day weekend, Isabella's sister offered to give the 2 a ride. When they arrived at Emma's house, they realized something crazy.
And we were like, oh my gosh, we're only like 4 minutes away from each other. So it was just super crazy because we knew like we were both in the Charlotte area, but we had no idea that we had been living like so close to each other for years.
The 2 continued to spend time together running, eating at the dining hall, doing homework, and riding back to Charlotte together. Emma and Isabella will be headed to Charlotte soon, and this time it won't just be for a visit home, but a meet. I'm Emma Hall, reporting.
There is a big game against the team from a few miles down the road on Saturday, and Sports Extra will be back on Friday for a full preview of that Duke matchup. But first, our documentary, Play Today, recapping the 2022 field hockey team's undefeated run to the national championship, premieres tomorrow night.
Hey, Ashna, are you into thrifting?
Yeah, I love going to secondhand stores to find some unique pieces. How about you?
Oh yeah, and it's a really great way to reduce my carbon footprint. And in fact, Chapel Hill now has its own secondhand bazaar.
That's right, Kasia. 2 UNC grads turned entrepreneurs are bringing vintage clothes back to life. CW's own Mackenzie O'Donnell met with both of them.
Garrett Young Wright and Aaron Wan pursued different careers after leaving UNC, but their passion for vintage clothes brought them back together.
Working on our econ classes together, and then we lived together senior year.
and discovered this interest in fashion and secondhand clothing.
The COVID-19 pandemic sparked an explosion in the online vintage clothing scene. Young Wright and Juan quit their jobs in retail and finance to start Secondhand Concession Stand, an online marketplace for t-shirts and hoodies with 90s and 2000s iconography.
Once COVID hit, it was we knew it was time to get started.
We had our own collections that were, rare tees, and we saw them, triple in price. So we were selling on Instagram, selling on our website. But when COVID slowed down a little bit is when we started getting into the pop-up markets.
Now, they are the organizers of North Carolina's largest vintage clothing market, the Vintage Bazaar. After a successful first run, the bazaar returned to the Raleigh Convention Center last week for its second year. Walking in, you are transported back in time. The air is thick with nostalgia as patrons browse through racks of vintage ball caps, ornate knitwear, and band t-shirts.
I've never seen so many clothes in one place before, so it's really exciting. It's a lot to look through, but it's awesome.
Most of the time I go to markets where I'm one of the only vintage sellers, and it's just so amazing to be in a place where everyone's appreciating the vintage, here for a deal, just feel an overwhelming sense of community.
The Vintage Bazaar is just the beginning. Young Wright and Juan are testing out their first in-person shop at Boxyard RTP on a short lease, so be on the lookout. In Raleigh, I'm Mackenzie O'Donnell, Carolina Week.
It's always great to see Tar Heels making their mark after their time at Carolina.
Absolutely. Let's make sure to head over soon to see what that's all about.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Carolina Week. We'll see you next week.